Good morning, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the specs and the cost of my simulator setup. So starting off with the biggest thing on my rig, but not the most expensive, we've got my cockpit. So this is a GTR cockpit. GTR Simulators, I believe, is the company, and this is their GTA model cockpit. And so to preface this, I do have a new cockpit coming. It is not from GTR Simulators. It is actually from Track Racer is the name of the company. And I'm going to be upgrading that in a later video, so keep your eyes out for that. But getting right into this is the GTA model. I bought this for about $500 on Amazon. The reason why I bought this rig was because I was moving and I had a Thrustmaster TMX, was my first ever simulator steering wheel. And it was a great starting wheel. I liked it a lot. But I was going from a hard mounted desk that was actually wall mounted for that setup to not having a desk to be able to drive on. And so that's where I landed with the GTR simulator cockpit. And the reason for that is because it was on Amazon. It was around the $500 range. So I'd consider that about mid-tier for price, at least when it comes to simulator cockpits. And it seemed like a good deal at the time. At that time, I did not own the Fanatec DD1 steering wheel that I currently have. I know there are a lot of comments on videos that I make. When I make those satisfying sim videos, a lot of people comment, this wheelbase cannot be supported by this cockpit. And I fully understand that. That's one of the reasons that I'm upgrading in a later video. But I want to show you guys what I currently have so you guys get a better idea of how much this stuff costs and where you should put your money. So going back to the cockpit, this is not my favorite cockpit now that I've had more time with sim racing. I've been sim racing for about 5 years. And like I said, this was my first ever cockpit. It did the job well. This simulator cockpit is fine if you never plan on going to a direct drive wheel. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that this can even handle the DD1 currently. It's on the edge for sure, but I'm surprised it hasn't broke under the amount of pressure that this wheelbase provides. So there is not a lot of adjustability, but you've got some adjustability here. This plate has started to kind of warp on this. Not to mention, it is not the most stable rig, unfortunately. And you've got some pedal adjustment. There's a quick adjustment right there that actually is pretty nice. I do enjoy that. Anytime I've had a friend hop on the sim, it's been a lot easier to have them use that quick adjustment down there. That is basically all the adjustment you get. There's not any tilt adjustment, which is one of my biggest gripes with this. Normally your steering wheel should not be flat like this. This is perfectly flat. It should be angled slightly up. And so that's one of my biggest issues with this cockpit, is it does not allow you to properly adjust your steering wheel to be in the proper position as if you're in a real car. And so that's a huge issue for me. With that, the other issue I have with this is the stability of the rig. It is not very stable, especially side to side motions and up and down motions when it comes to driving. And so those are two of my gripes with this setup. That is something that I would consider. The seat quality is not terrible, but it's not great. I've done up to 2-hour races in this seat before and it's been fine, but I would not amp yourself up thinking that you're gonna get an amazing seat with this type of cockpit. So with the cockpit out of the way, we're gonna move on to what I have right here, my shifter and my handbrake. These are both by Thrustmaster. This is their Thrustmaster H pattern shifter. I'll pop up the price of it. Now, when I first bought this shifter, this was my second addition to my sim setup back when I was on a desk. And I really enjoyed this back in the day when I first got it. It's still pretty notchy, but I will say this little metal outlining piece does a lot of work for this thing. It hides a lot of the fact that this is not very notchy. And so it might sound notchy, but feeling wise, I can take my pinky and press this in to anywhere, right? It's very easy to do. It doesn't feel like a real car where you need to kind of force it in a little bit more. I'm not saying that you need to, put all your muscle into it, but I feel like that it should be a little bit heavier than this. And I'm sure there's a little bit of adjustment that you can do on this specific one. However, for its price, I feel like there's other shifters from Fanatec and Moza that will do a better job around the same price. And so I've tried the Moza shifter before. I haven't tried the Fanatec one yet, but I was very impressed with the Moza one, and I'm sure the Fanatec one is equally as good. So right next to it, we've got the handbrake. This is actually one of my favorite additions to my sim. This was the third thing I ever bought when I did a simulator upgrade. And this is a Sparco collab with Thrustmaster, and it's a pretty robust piece of equipment. It feels amazing. It's withstanded all of the beating that I've put on it, drifting, with rally racing, with just using it as a sequential shifter as well. This thing is dual purpose and I think it is great. However, I will say I don't have a lot of experience with other e-brakes from other brands. And so I will say that I enjoyed this one a lot. I've had no issues with it. Quality wise, it feels great. It looks amazing. And it's very easy to switch over to sequential. You just undo 2 of these bolts and slide them up, and it'll allow you to move it forward and backward, which is really cool. And with a flip of the switch, it flips the input. So I think it's really good for what it is. I really enjoy the dual purpose of it, being able to have kind of a, you know, rally sequential up here if I need it. If I'm racing Cup Miata or any sort of road car that's been converted to a sequential transmission, it definitely feels a lot more immersive having this fairly level with my steering wheel, getting that nice clunk every time that I hit it, which I really like. So now that we got the shifter and the handbrake out of the way, we're gonna move on to pedals. Now I'm gonna move this power supply. It's normally not sitting here, but when I slide around the sim, I do put it up there just so it doesn't get snagged on anything. These are the Club Sport pedals from Fanatec, and I really like these. These have actual force feedback motors in the gas and in the brake of the pedals, which is really cool. It's also got a load cell to make it feel more realistic, and the clutch has more of a biting feeling. You can kind of see how it drops up at the same time as it's pulling back, and it gives you a nice feeling on the clutch. It allows me to get really good starts, especially I've been racing a lot of Formula 3 in iRacing, and this pedal setup has been awesome. I've been using the hand clutch more and more as I've gotten used to it. However, the foot clutch is still amazing. I love it when I'm drifting, or if I want to use it to get a start off the line, I can always swap from my foot clutch to my hand clutch. It's always very easy. I never have any issues. So those are the Club Sports out of the way. I would highly recommend these, especially if they're on sale with a bundle setup. This brings me to my next point. I bought this as a bundle together. I got the steering wheel, the wheelbase, and the pedals for $1,600 from Fanatec. And the reason why is they were running a special deal on the DD1. I think it was right when the DD2 head came out. I was able to get about $300 off if I purchased the wheelbase with some pedals and a steering wheel that obviously came with it. And so the steering wheel is a Formula 1 Fanatec collab steering wheel. It is amazing. Everything feels super notchy on it, and I love it. You've got 2 different paddles here, and then you've got your hand clutch here on both sides, and I just love the way this thing feels. I love the button caps that you can swap out. Everything feels amazing. The knobs feel amazing. I use these little knobs for radio, which I love. The spotter in iRacing sometimes can get a bit loud or be a bit quiet. So depending on the environment, I will lower him or raise his voice. And then along with that, I have the live radio as well to the other drivers that I can adjust. But yeah, I have no complaints with the steering wheel. Every Fanatec steering wheel I've ever felt, including the circle wheel that you've seen in some of my videos, those all feel amazing. I have no complaints. Definitely the best money I spent out of this total setup was on this wheelbase. This transformed the way that I look at sim racing. I used to look at sim racing as it kind of feels okay, but when you've got almost 20 Newton meters of room in the torque range on this wheel, it really shows you how detailed you can get with the experience and how immersive it can get when you're getting feedback from the car and the surfaces that you're driving over. This, compared with the feedback from the wheel and the feedback from the pedals, make this so much more immersive. And while we're talking about immersion, you might notice this little controller that I have sitting up here, and this is a butt kicker. And so right here, I've got my butt kicker amp. And so this butt kicker amp is wired all the way back to below the seat back here, and you can kind of see it. But basically, it's hard to show you guys and communicate it, but the butt kicker pairs hand in hand with my DD1, my pedals, and my steering wheel and my butt, basically, and it links them all together and makes this feel like one cohesive unit. Even though the simulator cockpit is kind of janky, it's made this experience of driving so much more fun, and it's changed the way that I drive. I can feel the way that the car's braking much easier. I can feel a lockup coming. I can feel if I'm on a curb. All of this stuff is communicated so much better. So the butt kicker is definitely a game changer. Now, I will be honest, butt kicker did send me out this unit. This video is not a paid sponsorship or anything like that, but I just wanted to tell you guys how game-changing that's been. If I turn it off and try to drive, it's honestly hard to drive without it now. It's one of those things, once you've felt it and once you have it, it's hard to go back from it. I was racing some simulators at SEMA that I got the pleasure of trying out, and this just made me miss home, honestly. When I was driving a sim without a butt kicker, it just didn't feel right. And so I'd highly encourage you guys to try one of those. You don't even have to use my link in the bio, but if you do, I would really appreciate it. But the butt kicker is definitely one of those game-changing things when it comes to this rig. So the total cost of what you see in front of me is about $2,900 if you account for the butt kicker, the pedals, the shifter, the handbrake, the steering wheel, and the seat, and all of that. I would say that it's worth it. The reason why I justify this cost and the way that I think about it in my head is that I love to race. I love going go-karting. I love to go to track days. Even if it's not with my cars, I enjoy being on track, watching racing and all of that. And all of that costs money. And so the way I look at it is that I have put so many hours into something that I enjoy and that I don't have to spend gas to drive somewhere, have to spend entry fees, gear, all of that. And I'm able to still learn some racing skills at what I believe is a fraction of the price. I mean, yes, with about $3,000, you probably could get in some solid seat time at a go-karting event over and over again for over the course of a year or two. But I will say I enjoy this. It's very accessible. It's awesome to share it with friends. I love having my friends sit down and try this for the first time and spend hours on it when they come over. It's definitely something that is more of a community driven thing, and it's something that I enjoy. It's one of my hobbies. So that's how much I've spent on it. Let me know if you think it was worth it or not, and stay tuned for the new upgrade that's coming. This sim setup is going to look completely different, and along with that, I'm going to be adding some flight sim stuff to this setup, but I'm going to do it cleanly. I don't want to clutter this thing, but I do want to add some flight sim ability because I also enjoy aviation, and aviation sims are a big hobby of mine as well. So stay tuned for more videos. I hope this video gave you a better idea of what I'm using and gave you some ideas for your own sim setup. But don't take my word for it. There's plenty of forums and videos out there explaining where are the best routes to go depending on your budget and depending on what ecosystem you want to go with. Typically, what I've seen, most people go with Moza or Fanatec, and that's totally fine. It's up to you. There's also SimCube and plenty of other simulators out there that you can go with. So the choice is yours, but this is what I'm currently running. It's been working for me for a little over a year now. This month actually marks my 1-year anniversary with my DD1 and about a year and a half or 2 years with my GTR simulator. And so just giving you guys a better idea of the time frame of which it took me to upgrade. I've been doing sim racing for about 5 years, and 4 of those years was spent on not a direct drive wheel. So going from not a direct drive wheel to this DD1 has been a big game changer. But I'll talk to you guys later, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.